and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, everyone. Let's move on to roll call of the board members, please.
Robertson.
Here.
Racine.
Here.
Yulee is absent and excused. Agostinelli.
Here.
Castiglione.
Here.
Fudge.
Here.
DeGood.
Here. All right, we have our initial period for public comment at the beginning of the meeting. There are no public hearings today, but there is another opportunity for public comment at the end of the meeting. Feel free to step forward, state your name, address, and make your comments heard. Seeing none of our four guests rushing to the podium, we'll go ahead and, oh, yeah, if you...
You want to comment?
Oh, go ahead, please.
All right.
Great. Excellent.
Boy, you scare him. Now we got half the crowd up there.
He's funny. All right. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Wayne Kiley, 9514 South M37 in Buckley.
And I'm Rob Mead, 4500 East Duck Lake Road in Groton.
All right. Well, first of all, we want to thank the opportunity to be here and have this discussion. And before I really get into whatever comments we have, I just want to tell you, it's been a pleasure working with John Syke and Steve Hannon. These guys really, first and foremost, are looking out for the long-term master plan for Garfield Township. We agree on most things, but first and foremost, just in case I don't live to be 100 years old, they're looking at what happens after we're out of the picture. So that's what a good planner should do, and we're delighted to have that kind of working relationship and that kind of collaboration. So it's been good. And so we appreciate how far we've come in this process. One of the ideas that Rob and I came up with this hotel.
Do you know what we're talking about?
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, good. Tell them what we're.
Just making sure everybody's familiar with what we're here. We're on the airport property. If you're familiar with that, okay. Just want to.
Yeah, that's why I wanted you to go up here. At any rate, one of the things that we've kind of brainstormed with John and Steve and ourselves is the idea of having kind of a boutique concierge service in the form of a car cuddy. Let's call it car cuddy, where there would be a building, a structure on the site of the hotel, and for the people that want to store a car there, or they come to the hotel because there is heated, covered, enclosed parking where they could literally leave their car there for a pretty nice fee for a couple of months at a time, or for the winter. That would be an ancillary business revenue source for the hotel. Now, that's not here to compete with the airport. The airport doesn't offer anything like that. And I don't think any of the other private car garages or ports or cuddies in Traverse City offer that. So that's kind of what our idea is. And so I was just throwing out to John and Steve to think about in the context of a hotel so we have more things to offer in the hotel that we're trying to come up with. So that's my only comment. Other than that, I think everything's going well.
And the only reason we bring it up is because there are some guidelines around what's going to go on that property with the new zoning that we're talking about, and it does refer to how automobiles will be used there, and we certainly aren't talking about drive-through, we aren't talking about car washes, we aren't talking about gas stations, but we want to be very clear and considerate that if this is an opportunity, we'd like to make it available to folks. There's a need out there for it. We interface with a lot of people that do drive in from Charleroi and further north, and they have their cars, and they say, I really don't want to leave my car there for a month at the airport. I'm going to Naples and I'm going here, but there's no place I feel comfortable. I'm either going to have to take an Uber, which I prefer not to do. I'd like to have my car. And so it came up as an opportunity, and we thought we better come here and maybe explain that's maybe one of the things we'd like to make an option, and that's why we're talking.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right, if we have no other comment, we'll go ahead and close the public comment period and move on to review and approval of the agenda and statements of any conflicts of interest.
Make a motion that the agenda be approved.
Support.
Motion by Fudge, support by Agostinelli. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. Motion passes. Now let's take a look at the meeting minutes from April 8th, 2026.
I'll make a motion, we approve those minutes as printed. Support.
Motion by Racine, support by Fudge. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed signify by saying nay. Nay. That was not a vote. That was just me getting carried away. All right, the motion passes. Any correspondence? I saw 2 items.
There's a couple things in the packet, and then a couple things on your desk. So in the packet, there is a notice of public hearing from Green Lake Township. It describes it as both a request for a master plan amendment and a rezoning. When staff received this, we actually did kind of have some questions in terms of, like, it's requesting a master plan amendment. We never got like a notice of intent to plan or anything like that. I think staff could potentially follow up and just ask more detail on what is being proposed, and does this concern wanting to get comments from the Plan Commission. We do share a corner with Green Lake, so not a whole border, but we are within enough range. That's why we received that. Also in the packet is a comments on the Copper Ridge. This arrived, it was after the packet went out. We could have provided it on the desks at the last meeting, but it's comments on the Copper Ridge PUD. We are considering findings of fact at the next meeting. Staff can respond to some of the comments that were made in that. That's sort of like addendum to that public hearing. And we have a couple things on the desk. A public comment on the Dunn rezoning, which we just received earlier today, and a notice of a distribution of a draft master plan for Elmwood Township, of which we do share a border. And that's it.
All right, thank you, Steve. Any questions for Steve on the correspondence? All right, we'll move on to reports. Molly, anything from the Township Board?
Not from the board, but I want to mention MTA, Michigan Townships Association, is in town, and yesterday I attended a session on the data centers. And one of the things that the attorney was talking about was the different things that you should put in and describing what those data centers are and what sizes and lighting and all the other criteria. But one of the things that he mentioned was sound, and he said that there's a number you can put on the sound. So I'm thinking about, we have other things that we have talked about here that have to do with sound, car washes, bars, things like that. If there's a number for that we can use from the building to the lot line, then let's find out what that number is. That might be helpful to us when we're doing that. So that's it.
All right.
Thanks, Molly. Zoning Board of Appeals.
Hasn't been any meeting.
Hasn't been a meeting since our last meeting here for Parks. What about the Joint Planning Commission?
No meeting.
No meeting there either.
All right, we'll move on to staff report.
I don't know if we had anything besides what's in the packet. John, do we have anything?
No, but one thing I should have mentioned is we have a representative, John is one of your representatives on the Joint Planning Commission, so term is up at May 14th. So probably would be wise to make a recommendation to the board, because I think it's a board appointment. We have 2 appointments from the Planning Commission and then 1 at large from the town, that's a resident within the township. So we could add that under other business.
Let's add that under other business. So shall we revisit the is. Yeah, let's just make a motion to revise the agenda. I'd like a motion to revise the agenda and add an appointment to the, or recommendation for an appointment to the Joint Planning Commission to the agenda under other business. Anybody-
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Augustinelli, support by Fudge. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. All righty. Anything else from staff? Okay. Let's move on to old business. Item number A, PD 2026-50-58, proposed township zoning ordinance amendments, mobile foods blending units, and mixed-use suburban MUS zoning district introduction.
As you recall, last month, we were looking at I think there was about 5 different areas considering amending the ordinance. And we thought for this study session is to maybe pare it back a little bit, because those conversations could get pretty long. Some of them require some additional study, so, but we thought that these 2 items, mobile food vending units and mixed-use suburban district draft, were something that could have a better chance of moving forward based on the discussions that we had. So we have some amendments to the draft mobile food vending units, which is to provide them as an accessory use in some of the commercial districts. And then we have the draft mixed-use suburban district that will be a new district entered into Article 3, which is the list of all the different districts within the ordinance. In doing so, if you recall at the last study session, there was some comments made about solar energy systems, the primary systems. So when we started going through that and kind of looking at that, we wanted to revisit that, mainly because it may be more providing in a lot more districts than we probably thought would be appropriate. We did include all of Article 3 because there were some other changes in there. But when we get to that one, I think Steve can kind of go through that Article 3 and kind of maybe walk you through it. But at this point, maybe we can just start with the mobile food vending units discussion. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so just to point out some of the changes, and again, this provides a definition. There's been no changes to that as an accessory. And then Section 740, which is the additional regulations that's provided, the supplemental regulations for different land uses. One of the things we did is we limited it to no more than 1 unit. It's permitted as an accessory. And that it would be solely on the parcel of the primary use designated, the hard surface location as shown on an approved site plan. So if somebody wanted to locate it, they would have to provide it on a site plan. It wouldn't occupy nor operate within any public right-of-way, road easement, fire lane, required parking space, or landscape area. So that's some of this was already in there, but just kind of clarifying it. It's subject to all the setback requirements for the parcel. This is one that we kind of added in there, was there shall be no drive-through, drive-in, or drive-up service to and/or purchases from the unit by any vehicle. The Metro Fire Department would review and approve the location, and then they also provide or require regular inspections, annual inspections. So we didn't put it as annual because that may change, but we just wanted whatever their requirement is. So just kind of clarified that. The remaining items in there pretty much they were not altered based on the comments. So, and then at the bottom there, you'll see the 4 districts that it would be permitted in: the local commercial, the general commercial, highway commercial, and planned shopping center. And again, this would be an accessory to a primary use.
Is that approved site plan, can that just be it don't need to stamped by any engineer? The person can just draw their own, correct?
Yeah, I mean, in many cases, if there was already a use established there, there may be a site plan already on file. So that would be an amendment to an existing site plan. If for some reason there isn't, that we could provide, we have like a sketch plan that they could provide, so long as they can outline some of the requirements here.
But there's no need to, we don't have to add anything to that. Approved site plan, something they could draw up themselves if they needed to.
Right, and it would just require staff review at a minimum, yeah.
Chris?
Mm-hmm.
Question?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry, Molly.
Under number 7, should we, since we're putting in fire department, should we also put health department? Or we're just gonna assume that's gonna happen because it's food?
We put a catch-all statement down number 15. The unit shall comply with all applicable federal, state, county, and local regulations, including the special transitory food unit license from the state of Michigan.
All right, does the county health department check those out as well?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yep.
Good.
Kind of the reason we put Metro Fire in there is I got an email from them, so I thought that would be just something, it's one of those ones that they do, so we thought, okay, they do a lot of, they're kind of a regular agency review, typical, and there are other, references for Metro Fire within our ordinance, so we thought to put that in there prominently. We could add Health Department as well, just to kind of maybe single that out, since that is an important one.
Well, it's not just the state,
Right.
the local guys need to check too, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
John?
In number 10, it talks about a portable sign that is 6 square feet. Might we want it to say not to exceed 6 square feet?
Yep.
And sort of just a general timing question, assuming we vote in favor of proposing this to the town board this evening, my recollection is this is sort of got to work hand in glove with a police power ordinance
Yes.
that the town board, but not the planning commission, would be dealing with. Are they going to be ready to rock and roll and get adopted at the same time?
Yeah, the first thing that you would do here is we'd schedule a public hearing. So we, if you wanted to move forward on this tonight, we'd have a public hearing on May 13th. And we already have something drafted, so that we would, I think, so let's say you have a public hearing on May 13th and you're favorable to what you see and you want that to move to the township board, then we would include the draft language for that ordinance at that time, the licensing ordinance.
Okay,
Would the
thanks.
town board also need to have a public hearing, or it can just happen here and that's it?
Yeah, they'll need a public hearing for
Both.
both the police power ordinance and this one. I think they could, at that point, they kind of merge together and they could do the 2 public hearings, one for the licensing ordinance and one for the zoning ordinance amendment. So that probably, let's say it does go forward, I guess it depends on how the calendar works. And, I know the police power ordinance doesn't require 15 days, I think it's 10. Zoning requires 15 days, so probably would be, public hearing wise, would probably be your second meeting at the township board in June, at the earliest, should everything go forward.
So possibly 4th of July, they could have, this could be settled and done with, or would that be pushing it?
Yeah, typically when it passes, I mean, yeah, they would have to go through the process, once it's enacted, they still got to get approval,
Sure.
so, maybe, it's a possibility, because usually an ordinance is enacted, usually about 7 days after the board takes action, and then we would have to have a plan approved, plus they would also have to file for a license.
But if-
On the signs, is it possible to allow like two 2-foot signs rather than one 6-foot sign? Depending on where it's at, one sign might not work too well.
I don't know, this was something that we saw in other ordinances, and really, it's, I don't even know if it's something you want to do. It's kind of like we put that in there. But I would limit it to one.
Okay.
It just makes it easier, because then if you, they have you get one, even that's kind of, like, they have they kind of can grow. If, you might get two, and then all of a sudden there's the third one, and so.
What I'm thinking about is some of these trucks got it painted on the side of the vehicle.
Yeah, and this would be, this would not really be on the unit itself. This is a portable sign, so this would be something that they would set up.
There's no limit to signs on vehicles, though, in this ordinance.
Well, so the sign ordinance
Could that get
section
into the
doesn't.
wall signs?
Yeah, I mean, the ordinance itself, I mean, I guess, we have all kinds of commercial vehicles that have the name of the business all, around them. So there's nothing that really regulates. The zoning ordinance doesn't get into vehicles so much, so unless it's a vehicle parking issue or something of that nature. So what's actually on the unit itself isn't something that the zoning ordinance would regulate. It could be something through the licensing ordinance would probably be the way to do it. But the
Since
section
it's functionally a
630 is-
wall at that point.
Well, I wouldn't, it's not a building. It's not-
Right, but yeah.
So
it's
the
taking
zoning ordinance
place
really
of
only
it.
regulates like standalone signs or signs that are placed on the building itself.
Yeah.
That gets tricky, though, because if you,
If we're putting it in the zoning ordinance, then it is, the vehicle is still regulated by the township.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess, how do we regulate mobile homes, right?
Well, I mean, I'm thinking if a building were painted with like art, as I see a lot of the trucks, food trucks that I'm familiar with, they're kind of, they're painted with a logo type theme, but not necessarily, it seems like you could put the name of your restaurant on the side of your truck in a different way that you can put the name of your restaurant on a building.
Mm-hmm.
And then it also, so there's that aspect of it that I'd be curious if you guys had some more thoughts on. I don't know that I can resolve it, or we can resolve it right now. But what's the difference between our limitations on the name of a restaurant on the side of a truck versus the name of a restaurant on a brick and mortar building? And should there be parity? Those are my two questions.
Here you go.
And then the other piece of it is, don't we limit a menu board the size of a menu board associated with like a restaurant or a drive-through? Is that not a sign?
So that's what I was saying, there's typically on a building or like a standalone on-site sign, like a monument sign or a freestanding pole sign. And that's where this, we don't typically allow, some people put those feather signs out there. The ordinance does not permit anything like that, so those are not permitted. This is just allowing them to have something that could stand on its own. But in terms of the unit itself, it's the same thing, like if you go to the U-Haul dealer right there, they have all their U-Haul trucks. It says, there's nothing, the zoning ordinance regulates land use. It does not regulate vehicles. It regulates the placement of vehicles, that type of thing. Like you can't put a vehicle out as to function like a sign so much. I think there's something in the ordinance that talks to that. Specifically, like if you place it out and you don't ever move it. I think there's something to that effect in the ordinance, but.
Or if it were inoperable, like if all of a sudden U-Haul's like threw an inoperable thing out there, like this is now our sign. It's like, no, you can't count that.
There's something in that regard, but generally zoning doesn't get into regulating vehicles. Like I said, there could be something, if it's gonna be addressed, it would be most appropriate to be in the licensing ordinance. But quite frankly, I think we recognize that most of these trucks are kind of like they used to have the old-fashioned ice cream trucks. I mean, these
Sure.
things are going to have signs on them. I think that's the nature of it.
It seems more difficult to try and regulate it than to just continue with the status quo, right?
Because that gets to kind of the split of what would go in a police power versus what would go in zoning. Like zoning would allow the brick and mortar business to have a food truck. Licensing would say like Steve's food truck can operate in Garfield Township, and if my thing fell apart or if I wasn't actually operating it, I'd get pulled out of there or lose the license. But they can put in another legitimate food truck in that same spot, which might have its own paint scheme and signage and everything. So anything that's like business specific that wouldn't actually long-term tie to the site itself would seem to make sense in the licensing part of the ordinance, to make sure this doesn't become like junk, or which I think the township even has a junk ordinance on the books, if I'm not mistaken, but something like that. So
Okay.
yeah.
Ben, did you have anything more to add? John?
Not on the sign topic.
Go ahead.
One other thing that I'm wondering if we want to tweak it. It looks like we've got a new definition that would go in section 201 for these mobile food unit, the topic we're talking about. In the current section 201, there's still the old definition for food truck,
Yeah.
which is probably kind of redundant, and it repeats a lot of the same language that's proposed here. Would we maybe for the food truck just say C mobile food vending unit or something like that?
Yeah, we've done
That
that
would make
before,
sense.
just as a reference.
But maybe just so somebody makes a note somewhere, that's probably one more tweak we got to do to.
We should
section
add that to
201.
this page, but yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, we put this to the page so that under section 201, we would make that change. So we can show that.
Okay.
I have one more thing. It makes sense to me to not allow installation of a permanent sewer or water hookup like you would have, say, like at a campground. Because I'd rather see that stuff packaged and hauled off, or, or water brought in. But, well, although the permanent water, I just don't pay attention. Do some of them have hoses going to buildings, or how do they get water on those things?
It's a good question, but I'm assuming it's working in concert with the building and obtaining some type of service through that. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I mean, part of that is also going to be regulated, I'm sure, by the health department.
By the health department,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I'm fine staying out of that, leaving that alone. But I'm wondering I'm curious about how they get electrical service to some of these, if they have electrical service, and if it would be a benefit to just have a circuit with a plug installed as part, we're asking that they put a pad in place, and it's going to have its own place to sit. But I guess I wouldn't mind if somebody was having a mobile food vending unit station. I'd like some more thought from you guys maybe, or we can hear public comment, but might it not make sense for the main building owner to run a circuit out and just have a yard plug where that could be plugged in, rather than running a cord to a building or something like that for electrical, or a temporary overhead service to an electrical pole?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's something I really wouldn't know what would be appropriate. I mean, I know what you're saying. It would just be, more organized, safer, most likely. And I'm assuming this would all have to, require appropriate inspections, I don't know, and, electrical inspections, not quite sure, so.
I guess my thought is if you could reach out to the gentleman who's planning on doing it, if, just some slight feedback on whether we should address the electrical issue, or if they're all gonna have generators anyway. And then finally, one unit seems reasonable to me, but I would look forward to public comment, because it doesn't seem unreasonable that a certain brick and mortar place that's gonna have this as an accessory use might want two. and might be able to provide enough traffic. But one does seem reasonable, but I look forward to any comment at the public hearing that would say otherwise.
So I guess, now number 14, of the sewer and the water, is that something that came out of like Little Fleet, or what do they have down there? Because I thought they came in there and put sewer and waters in, and then for everyone, like
Right, and they may have.
Is that something, though,
Because that was
that-
really designed as like a food court.
Okay, but-
Situation where you have, I don't know, 5 or 6 of them, so obviously it makes sense. Plus, they actually, have the brick and mortar building there with the bathrooms and bar service. But, yeah, I guess we were just envisioning that this would be more
Temporary.
limited.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at some point, if they're really seriously about having permanent connections, then maybe they should just build an addition.
Oh,
You know?
okay, I was wondering
That's
if
why, I mean, we were just trying to, like, not,
okay, we can
embed
always
these-
change stuff too if we need
Yeah,
to.
yeah.
yeah, and that's the thing, too. I think on a lot of stuff, we thought, well, let's pare it back.
Sure.
See how it goes, and if there's interest in expanding, we can always go back and adjust.
What's the process if somebody wants to put in 2 instead of 1?
Well, under this, it wouldn't be permitted. So you would have to at least say that there would be allowed, in this language, to allow for 2.
Somebody would have to come back in and request a zoning amendment to
Yeah.
allow for 2.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, if that's something you want to,
Is there a way, or is this getting too complicated to put in a special use permit for more than 1?
Yeah, I mean, because I look at this as an accessory use.
Okay.
So a special use permit, I think would, that would, yeah, I would say either put 1 or 2 in at this point, and whatever and, we have one business that's interested in this, and we thought it made sense, and potentially there'll be other businesses if for some reason it does, there's demand for more than 2 on a site, I think then we can revisit the ordinance.
My next question would be, does this limit a property to 1 unit? Then if they want to bring in another one temporarily, can the police powers allow that?
No. Because the zoning, both ordinances have to work hand in hand. So the purpose of the zoning is really to allow for that use being at at a location on there based on an approved site plan. The licensing, its purpose is more about operation issues, so like if there are complaints, let's say odors or noise or whatever, then you have that license, and if for some reason need be, you could revoke that license, and that license would be something that would be more on an annual basis. So the license is to really the activity and the operation of that, where the zoning is strictly on the use. So they got to work hand in hand.
Okay. So we won't ever see 2 food trucks on a piece of property, even if one is temporary, as in for the weekend?
Yeah, technically you shouldn't. If it says 1, 1's pretty much it. Right?
Yeah, and I know there was some discussions at kind of some different, both here and when we had our joint meeting with the town board on kind of the whole concept. I think one of those was about like doing them at events. That's what we were thinking of, like temporary as part of events. And I think, at least the direction we took from it was focus on just getting it established zoning first. But there was some hesitancy on some with events. Some of that was hesitancy on events in parks. But I think it was more like focus on just at least allowing something to start. But should we consider them in events at some point down the road? Perhaps. And if we get enough requests to do that, and we might say, okay, that might be warranted, there would be something kind of different than zoning to look at that point. Because you're not going to redesign your whole site for a temporary event, but you also need to account for what is everything else going on that site that usually needs that space. So, I think that was kind of where we landed when we did the joint meeting with the town board, so.
Yeah, this probably wouldn't really work for situations where there's events. This is more like an accessory where I think in the case of the place on Cass was really thinking that, how can they get food service here where they don't want to have to staff a kitchen, if they can bring in a food truck, that's somebody that's already operating food service, and it's really to kind of supplement the main use. Events, I think, like Steve was saying, something that maybe we kind of just put that down the road for another discussion in the future. This kind of gets us a chance to get our feet wet a little bit.
Molly?
Yeah, just on the events, my recollection of the joint meeting was that most of the town board was not too excited about having them at the parks. And so if we set it up this way and we do the police power, they're not going to be allowed at the parks. If the planning commission decides at some point in time that we want to move in that direction more, then it's going to be a change. Am I
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
It would have to be a change to the zoning ordinance and obviously the police power ordinance, that would be the companion piece. Both of those will always have to work kind of hand in hand.
Yeah.
So Molly, after that meeting, I think it was after that meeting, we had a discussion at a Parks Commission meeting about the same issue.
Yep.
And there was some, I don't know if I can go so far as to say it was consensus, but I had a sense that there was some potential support for if you were to come in and rent the pavilion at the park, and associated with the pavilion, you wanted to not do crock pots for your family reunion, but you wanted to just bring in and pay for a food truck. My sense was that the Parks Commission was open to that as an accessory use to the use of the pavilion. Or if you were running a day-long, I think the rugby team has a tournament. If they had a tournament,
They have regular games
maybe they
there,
could
yeah.
bring in a tournament, but it couldn't disrupt the regular parking in the same way that we're laying out this ordinance. And interestingly, I'm in a similar situation myself personally. We're having a little party at the Discovery Pier, and I asked the person who runs that if we could have our food with a food truck, and she specifically said that the Elmwood Township ordinance does not allow a food truck to just drive up into anywhere, the Discovery Pier in specifically, and open up for business. But if you had rented the pavilion on the pier, you could get you were allowed to hire a food truck to provide your food service. And so all that to say, I think that the Parks Commission would be interested in considering that use, but it sounds like it would have to go through, if the Parks Commission suggested it would have to go through then a zoning ordinance process as well as a park permit process, so the trustees would see it twice.
Yeah, and they would have to change that police power to include those kinds of things. So the way that it's set up right now, nothing at parks. The parks can
That would be my understanding, yep.
talk about it as much as they want to talk
Yeah.
and bring it back if they want to.
Well, and I would think what we probably need is for a parks user to come forward and say, hey, I want to use your park, but it's really important to me to be able to bring in a food truck associated with my rental of your park. And, so that would be the demand that the Parks Commission, the zoning, and the zoning commission and the trustees would respond to.
They could bring it to the board.
Yeah. Yeah,
But right now, no.
correct, exactly, I agree.
So Chris, right now, could a person rent a pavilion at the park and bring a caterer in?
I don't know, could you?
Sure.
I imagine
So
so,
I guess
I
that
don't
food
know.
truck should be the same, in my
Unless there's
opinion, but
some-
Well,
anyway,
except
that's
you gotta have
fine.
you're bringing a building onto the site. Well, of
No,
course,
it's
a
a motorized
caterer is
vehicle.
probably gonna have a trailer or something, but
But anyway, I'm fine with the way we have all
Yeah.
this. written. We can move on in.
You want to make a motion?
Well, was that motion for that, or was that for the energy?
You know
Well,
what?
Yeah,
Let's go through the next,
Oh, thank you,
Article
'cause it was
3, and then we
both.
can just throw it all into one.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Based that we kind of just recommended, but,
So- Are we good talking on food trucks? We're all satisfied to go to a public hearing on that?
I
We
am.
can make some tweaks based on those other things
Yeah.
that were mentioned earlier, yeah.
Were there tweaks, or was it just really, let's hear the public hearing and then?
Food truck to actually take out the definition and just say C, mobile food vending unit.
Oh, right.
Because we do have a current definition, so we want to reflect that. And then for
to
number
exceed.
10, a portable sign that shall not exceed 6 square feet.
and the thought is we're sticking with one unit.
I agree.
That's what's in here, yep.
Yep,
There's one
okay.
unit, yep.
All right.
yep,
Yep,
yep.
okay.
And we'll answer your question regarding the electrical service.
We can reach out to him, yep. All right.
So then we're going to talk also about the mixed-use suburban district, right?
Yes.
Oh, John,
Isn't there a page in between
Solar.
there on the solar?
Yeah, but why don't, do we have that, you want to talk about Article 3 and then how that, and then we'll, in the solar, or?
Sure, okay. Yeah, so we put, so yeah, the order, it's actually in your packet. Yeah, the next thing is on the primary solar energy, so like a solar farm. Right. This came up when we were actually looking at the original draft, or the previous draft language for mixed-use suburban. There was the provision in there. We put in the mixed-use suburban, when we were kind of putting together the draft language, we actually put a solar energy system primary because of this statement in there. It was primary solar energy systems may be permitted by special use in any zoning district, provided it is demonstrated the requirements of this section, all other applicable sections of this ordinance are satisfied. That sort of mimicked the language when we created this a few years ago. It mimicked the language of essential service facility, which is more like your electrical substation, that also said like permitted by special use permit in any zoning district. Kind of looking that more over with a fine-tooth comb, for like a substation, that does kind of make sense wherever it is sort of needed. For a solar farm, doesn't make as much sense. And I think that was sort of the thought that was put out there at the last discussion on this was, yeah, this doesn't really need to be in there, and frankly, doesn't make a sense in a lot of districts. We were thinking that it makes the most sense in probably in an ag or in industrial, depending on how it were set up, since it's more of an industrial use, but it also takes up space and is also associated with ag. So we actually proposed that as edits within Article 3, which we'll get to, but part of that was to actually just take out this sentence, and it's really, the more we thought about it, just a completely redundant sentence. Like there's most uses we do not, in Article 7, state it's allowed by special use permit and such and such. That's what we have in Article 3 and in the use chart. Like this is kind of overkill to have this sentence in here at all. So to then avoid that conflict, just take that sentence out of that part of Article 7.
And then you'll see in the use chart, on page, then the article, it's Article 3, page 3-12, you'll see solar energy system primary, where it's been removed as an SUP with the exception of the 2 industrial districts and the ag districts. And then it was amended, we gave you all of Article 3 to identify, it's showing that change.
Sounds good to me.
John?
I don't want to get down rabbit holes, but if we're tweaking this language at all, there was just one word that stood out to me, and I wasn't sure if it's correct or if it ought to be changed in what would be the new number 5. It says, all utility collection lines from the primary solar shall be placed underground. And I wasn't sure if collection, is that a term of art, or did they mean connection or collection?
That's a good question.
And I'm not trying to make changes if we shouldn't make them. I just didn't know whether that's
We'll take a
was a
look at
typo
that.
that needed to
Yeah.
Yeah,
get looked
we can
at.
take a look if it is intentional. We can keep it if it's not. We can always make like what is essentially a typo
Fair enough.
correction, since we're amending that if we do that.
I think that would be the lines that take the energy from each panel
Yep.
aggregate it, and then it goes to some kind of transfer station for the entire solar array that then might go overhead by utility pole. But you couldn't have lines strung overhead between each panel.
Right.
Okay.
But we'll still check on that
Yeah.
one,
Okay.
if what the appropriate term is.
Okay.
I think this is great. I mean, I think it's like, oh, this seems like an oversight, something we missed a while ago, because it doesn't seem like we would want to even allow these, a potentially residential
Yeah.
parcel to be taken up by a big solar array. Is that what you were getting at, Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think we were, like Steve said, we were looking at essential service facilities, and that's what we were using as the template when it really is not appropriate.
At least that part was not. Yeah.
But just in case anybody missed it, solar energy system accessory is still allowed as a use by right. So you can have your own personal solar panel
Yeah.
Yep.
to power your home or business, probably even feed some energy back into the system, but you can't be in the business of producing energy to just feed it into the system like you would with primary.
Right. And primary would also imply primary use of the site. So, like, yeah, if it's accessory to your home and it's on your roof or in your yard, absolutely. So,
Any more thoughts or questions?
okay.
All right, let's talk about the mixed-use suburban district.
Okay.
So really, based on the conversation that we had last time, it's really been the only change was removing the solar energy systems primary out of the special use permit category. Pretty much everything else stays the same. I did want to comment when we were talking with Wayne and Rob about the idea of a auto concierge service that would be provided. We did note to them that if that was to be a primary type of use, there is the IL district to the west of there, so that industrial park land that's all zoned there, that would permit you can have off-site parking and car wash as a special use permit, and then it also allows as major vehicle repair service as a use by right. So not necessarily speaking to what they're proposing, but if you were to have something that was maybe, more auto-intensive type of situation, there, while we wouldn't see it in this district, could be next door in that IL, at least if it's applied to the airport gateway area. In terms of what they spoke to this evening, we can see about that as if it were to be an accessory. Our concern on that initially was when you plan for different uses in different districts, you don't always have a ability to control where they're located in terms of within that district. So, and knowing that the sensitivity of this district where we did not want to have auto-intensive uses, and we wanted to have a certain quality and image provided as part of at least that gateway designation as per this master plan, we were just didn't want it to be a standalone use. As an accessory, you have the ability, just like we went through with the mobile food vending units, you can kind of look at it a little bit differently. So we can kind of take a look at that and see how that might work. So we do know that there is often this relationship between hotels and the airport. I mean, obviously you see vehicles out there that, with the hotel's name on it, and they're transporting people back and forth to the airport. So we do understand that kind of relationship and may want to provide some added service.
Questions? I think maybe I'm confused, but I shouldn't be. So the mixed-use suburban district is the next district because we already did the mixed-use
Neighborhood.
and the mixed-use suburban district is the next district that we were discussing adding. Unlike, we don't, is the mixed-use suburban district associated with the parcels that the gentleman owned? Own?
We kind of looked at this as being applied to a few different areas, where we want to allow some level of commercial, but we're really concerned about, when you get above the, let's say, like the local commercial, that was a big part of the mixed-use neighborhood. We kind of took a lot of the elements that were in the local commercial and applied that into mixed-use neighborhood. So you could potentially see that maybe at some point where the local commercial district is no longer standing and may just be that mixed-use neighborhood district. This one is a little bit, it's kind of if you're in local commercial, kind of the next step up is the general commercial. And while we recognize that there might be some good places to have some more intensive commercial, we thought it would also be good to have something where you're still limiting things like car washes and drive-throughs and gas stations. And that's where we thought this district would apply here. We also thought like the Logan's Landing area potentially.
Okay.
We also thought we have some commercial along Garfield to the south between South Airport going towards Hammond. We have a lot of general commercial through there. And maybe it's appropriate up near South Airport, but as it's going down, say, mid-block on Garfield Road, getting kind of closer to Hammond, this might be a good district to also have in there.
So, again, my brain's a little scrambled. So we just, relative to their property, remind me what we just achieved for them.
What we did was a master plan amendment.
Yeah,
The
that's
master plan
the master plan amendment. So
Okay.
right now, that area there's about a 12-acre area in there that's identified as Airport Gateway. That's just the future land use designation on there, which allows for a variety of mix of uses. The zoning in there right now is kind of a mix of, we got some local commercial, we got some R3 multifamily, and then the rest of it is mainly R1. So if they were to go in there, and they've talked about this idea of a hotel there, that would not be permitted under the current zoning. So they would have to rezone it. And we were already thinking of something of this, it just happens to be a good fit.
So, okay, so then procedurally, we're in a very similar situation that we were with the mixed-use residential, because we had an applicant who was like, boy, I really want a B-zone mixed-use residential that you're creating so that I can do this. And we have another applicant with regard to mixed-use suburban
Yeah.
that would be cohesive with our airport district master plan. And so these gentlemen were then here asking about including also an opportunity in this mixed-use suburban zone for like a vehicle storage, not necessarily like a storage, but just that they could use some of their parking for long-term parking for airport folks. Okay, is that, I mean,
No.
I'm connecting all the dots for myself. If it made sense to everybody else, then I was the only one.
Yeah, and just so you know, we still have two more that we're looking at too, and that would be the mixed-use center. So that we could see ultimately replacing our planned shopping center district, which we definitely want to overhaul that. And that could be applied to areas like the Cherryland Center, over, the Grand Traverse Mall area.
Even something that's currently a PUD, like Grand Traverse Crossings, that has a lot of that kind of mix of
Right.
uses in a center like that. Yeah.
And then we ultimately are looking at a mixed-use corridor, which would have a lot of access management provisions, and that we could see being applied to areas like US 31. And we've often thought you got a mix of commercial along that corridor as highway commercial and general commercial. We really like the highway commercial because it's got a lot of access management provisions and requirements in there, and it seems to be most appropriate, particularly on our main corridors. So those are the other two that are just still in concept right now.
So does anybody have any questions or thoughts to add to the mixed-use suburban discussion? If not, I mean, we've got, a draft of the ordinance, a couple of comments on other things that we've given to staff that they're going to work on. I guess I would encourage you guys to bring back some thoughts on what these gentlemen have asked for relative to, our potential first applicant for a rezone to mixed-use suburban. But John?
Just one question, I guess, on page 3-7 of Article 3, there's that Table 3-3 dimensional standards. And would you not want to insert something for the MUS in this grid?
Yes, yep, that was a little oversight. We'll put that right in after MU-N. We'll have an MU-S, which will have the same dimensional standards that are actually in the section itself. But yes,
Yep.
that's a good catch.
Yep.
Oh, good.
Okay.
If no one has anything else, then maybe we're ready to make a motion to.
Just to comment on a couple things. I actually just noticed looking at the MUS, under F, site development requirements, it starts with number 5 and
What page are you on, Steve?
3-57, the mixed-use suburban that we were just looking at. Yeah.
3-57.
Yeah. Number 2 starts with letter E. I blame Microsoft Word and its formatting for this. But yeah, we can make sure we do a thorough check of formatting. And then everything else, like we said, there's a lot of just small things throughout Article 3, and we even just caught some more in this.
Well, I have to say,
Yeah.
if I can interrupt you, the
Yeah.
redlining is made it very easy to go through and be like, I see what's changed.
Yep.
So I appreciate that.
So, yeah, and a lot of it is
If
just-
there are
yeah.
any other minor edits that you're seeing,
Yeah.
I would say just that's part of what goes in the public hearing package.
Yeah.
We're not talking about any policy stuff, I'm
Yeah.
hearing. So just make those other edits and.
We can-
I did find two.
Oh, perfect.
The definition or purpose, the second line, township by creating development nodes or along corridors that provide areas. Didn't seem like that or was necessary.
Which page is this? Sorry.
Article 3:55.
Oh, okay. Oh,
And
purpose of the
purpose.
whole of the
Yeah.
mixed-use suburban. Okay.
Then development principles, suburban under section A. It notes also includes multifamily residential. I don't know if we have a multifamily residential.
Well,
R3.
yeah, it's commercial district housing development is in there as a special use permit. So, but we could just say, we could clarify that.
We could just say, but also include commercial district housing.
Yeah, we could say commercial district housing, so it's not truly like a multifamily, but yeah.
Okay.
So that's, part of, in just the application of the airport gateway area, they do have a part of that, and that was originally planned for multifamily. So this, in a way, it still recognizes the ability, if somebody did want to put an apartment complex there, they could still do that by going through the commercial district housing development required provisions that's in the special use permit section within the mixed-use suburban district. So it doesn't preclude that either.
Anything else, Ben?
I'll make the motion then, unless somebody has something. That the proposed zoning ordinance text amendments as attached to Planning Department Report 2026-58 be scheduled for a public hearing for the May 13th, 2026 Planning Commission regular meeting.
I'll second that.
Motion by Robertson, support by Castiglione. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion passes. All right, that was a good discussion. And a good, bunch of stuff you guys bundled all together.
Yeah, thank you.
For the
Very
feedback.
much.
No, that was very good feedback, thank you.
All right, next we have new business. Item A, PD 2026-59, Article 8, Nonconformity Overview and Discussion.
Yeah, so we brought this, the Commissioner brought this to our attention regarding there's a sale of recent property in the township on South Airport Road. And just to kind of review the zoning ordinance relating to nonconformities, noncompliant sites, like kind of what is that, what is kind of the zoning ordinance take on this? My best professional guess is most likely the Logan's Landing East site, which was in the news for being sold to Shorts Brewing and Keen Technical Solutions. And we did actually have a pre-app meeting with those at the time prospective owners. I actually don't know if they'd have like an option, but we did have a pre-app meeting, and they kind of shared some ideas. And it sounds like there's both kind of a short-term and a long-term approach. Short-term, try to use what they can. I think even the news article on it mentioned that the current owner would remain as a tenant for some time. So it sort of allows a transition period. Long-term, we did identify that this area really kind of needs some special attention. It's quite fortuitous that we then had a very excessive rainfall in that area.
What?
Those buildings, yeah.
What? Excessive, what?
Yeah.
Rain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just in case anyone was in a coma in the last couple weeks. Yeah. But yeah, of course, that area got hit the hardest. Although I think Logan's Landing, the buildings themselves were relatively okay. I think our parkland actually got probably the worst of it more upstream. There was an MLive article with showed the building and then our pickleball courts completely underwater, which brought back memories of that closing out that grant.
Speaking of, did the YMCA facility, our township-owned building, I know,
Yeah.
I heard the water got up pretty high, but did it actually get in the
I
building?
believe
Yes,
it
it
got in the
did.
building. Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
I think they were actually. I think water or power had been shut off for a while. It might still be shut off there.
Yeah, I don't know the status of it, but
Yeah.
water.
Our
did
parks
get in.
guys were down there today. So
Okay.
yep. And assessing was down there for damage assessment. But anyway, which brings back to this would be considering a non-conforming structure because we do have like setback from a water or lake stream or a watermark, and currently some of those buildings are right up against the river. What we recognized, kind of in hearing, we've fielded calls and pre-application meetings a few different times on this. This is the most, I think, concrete ownership that we've actually seen. But throughout that process, we kind of thought having a potentially like a planned unit development that would address both sides of the river at Logan's Landing, since there's kind of the same issues affecting both sides, that would allow for there's sort of a limited development area available, especially if you went by the strict setback of from our stream setback or water setback, but that we need like at least some more protection on the water than is currently there. So having something that has some design capabilities to address that while also allowing for some development, it seems like a PUD process. Because PUD, the spirit of it is to do something that you can't do in a underlying zoning district. And that includes some dimensional requirements is something that Plan Commission and the board can consider. And while we're trying to do more mixed-use underlying districts, if there is a unique piece of property where it would be difficult to do something by any underlying zoning district, it would be one that's on a main road and borders a lake and a river and is in a floodplain and has a trail loop going right to it. Like, this has a lot of eyes on it, so. Doing a PUD seems to make some sense, but we did say both sides of the river would make the most sense to consider them together. And even with this purchase, both sides of these are still separately owned. So long-term, we would like them to work together and make some kind of proposal. So, but that's long-term. Short-term, the question was more the nonconformity. So just sort of as background, there is, we included Article 8, another entire article, although this one's only like 5 pages, so it's a lot easier to include. And typically, the zoning administrator deals with anything where there's a nonconformity. Sometimes things are just handled like through the permitting process. If there's a nonconforming rights that are maintained, they're acknowledged. So it's not something that we necessarily see just on our day-to-day, but this part of the zoning ordinance does define a few different things. A non-conforming use would be where it's lawfully established, but it no longer complies with use regulations in that district, the zoning district where it is. Non-conforming site would be a lot or a parcel that was lawfully established but does not comply with like dimensional standards. There are quite a few of those with like some dimensional like lots that are smaller than what the current ordinance says. A lot of them were developed before the zoning ordinance came into effect, so they predate the ordinance. Non-conforming structure would be structure that was lawfully erected, and then a non-conforming lot. I should actually say the non-conforming lot is the one where it's the dimensional requirements. Non-conforming site would be if it didn't meet setbacks to or other like dimensional requirements of a building site on a lot. So there's categories of different nonconformities, and the kind of general thought behind it, or general principle, that's the word I'm looking for. General principle behind it is if you maintain something that is non-conforming, that was lawfully established, that you can continue it even if new regulations are in place. You can continue it as long as you maintain it. If you cease the nonconformity, you lose the nonconforming rights. But as long as you maintain it as it was established, you get to maintain that status, essentially.
So, Steve, if I could ask,
Yes.
are there then scenarios wherein we typically don't deal with non-conforming uses at the
Correct.
planning commission level?
Correct.
Are there scenarios wherein there would be a planning commission review of the continued use of a building that requires planning commission approval, but where the building itself is a non-conforming building?
One example of recent memory was over on Boone Street. There was the photography studio that was going into the building. Building itself, I think, that was actually more, I think, a non-conforming lot where you had parking that came just right off the road. And this building predated, I think, some of those standards that was like there was not enough room to do a maneuvering lane and to actually come in and out.
Sure.
So there's egresses out of there. So it's like, all right, you have a building there. You want to establish something that is a special use in our current district. We just sort of acknowledge that, all right, the building or this site layout otherwise is staying the same. You're just adding a use to the building that's there. So they sort of maintain their non-conforming site as part of
So-
that.
Sure, so then
Yeah.
the kind of the point of bringing this
Yeah.
to our attention is just to
Mhm.
kind of refresh our memory,
Mm-hmm.
because sometime in the near future, we might have a particular site in a site in particular, rather,
Yeah.
at Logan's Landing, where they may be coming in for some sort of continued use of non-conforming structures, right?
Yes, or if they came in at some point with If all they wanted to do in the short term was just reuse the building as much as they can, as long as there have been restaurants in there, so if it's usable enough.
Is that the current use of the building, though?
That's a good question. When does a use, because I think we've seen, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's some interpretation of like, is a use considered to be ended once the new use is established, or if it is completely vacant for a period of time? This seems like a good attorney's question, by the way.
Hire one.
Yeah.
Because that went from a bar to a jewelry shop back, and now they want to go back to a bar, so that liquor license has to have the township approve that the zoning's correct for it. Don't that work that way?
Yeah, I mean, in the reality is if they have to reestablish that use, the question is not so much the uses that have gone on there. So if they do, for instance, it's general commercial is the zoning in there. I have to double check, but that's probably a use by right. I don't know. It's like a restaurant. So to establish that is not a big deal. It's really the building itself is the issue in terms of nonconformity. So if they did want to reestablish that, they might have to go through administrative site plan review.
So to change the use of the building doesn't expose you to the fact that the building doesn't meet the environmental setbacks that we have from the river now that we didn't have then.
Right, so it's a non-conforming
Yeah.
site. It might be a non-conforming structure or whatever that is, but the use is the issue. So if they had some other use in there that was non-conforming, that would be an issue. And then if they cease that, but to reestablish essentially a restaurant there is, we probably will have to go through site plan review, but that most likely is going to be administrative review.
Because the use is conforming, it's the building that is not conforming.
Yeah, that's the challenge with that site.
Yeah. The other sort of example was the dual road, where there was the, wanted to do, we called it commercial district housing, but they wanted to essentially do like a duplex on their site. The building looks like a house and probably was at one point a house, but it had changed to a different use, and the zoning was IG. So they wanted to go back to some kind of residential, was not allowed in IG. So they had to do the conditional rezoning because they did not retain non-conforming use rights. So they had to establish something that gave them that.
So does anybody have any questions or thoughts on the general refresher that staffers presented? Molly?
Yeah, probably outside of our purview here, but how is Eagle, if they go into where, down at Logan's Landing,
How is, which one?
how is, used to be DEQ, the Eagle.
Oh,
people.
Eagle. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
How are they, I mean, it seems to me if you improve more than 50% or, there's some number in that, then that you may have to move it.
Mm-hmm.
But you
It'd be a
can't
good
move it,
question.
you'll be in water.
Yeah, it would be a good question for Eagle, because I think our setback standards are the townships. I don't know what Eagle has just on their own, or if they have something.
Eagle has floodway and floodplain requirements.
Okay.
I'm assuming this is in a floodway, which is more strict
Mhm.
than floodplain
There's
requirements.
Yeah,
recent
and
evidence
actually,
that it's most likely in a
The building
floodway.
itself is not in the floodplain. The parking lot is, but the outline of the building is just at an elevation, making it out of the floodplain. believe it
They
or
probably
not.
filled it enough,
And
just
from my
enough to get it
understanding,
out of
they
there.
did not receive any water damage because of the
Mhm.
way the structure is built.
Well, it's been there forever.
Yeah, I think the part that, at least from how it was described to me, and I don't know this for certain, I'm hearing this secondhand, but the riverside is actually kind of like a concrete retaining wall. So they obviously knew what they were doing when they built that years ago, so. But from what I've heard, it is not flooded, and I just know inspecting the floodplain maps, that building footprint is high enough. The parking lot is not, parking lot's in the floodplain.
Mhm.
So.
You mentioned a PUD down there someday. Our PUD needs a minimum acreage amount,
It does. It
but we have
needs-
a way of getting by in that
It-
particular.
It needs a minimum of 20 acres, which actually, when you combine both of those sites, you're probably somewhere around 6 acres, very small sites. And that's one of our concerns about any type of redevelopment of that area is, I think people in their minds think, wow, you could do all kinds of great things here, but there are going to be some limitations to what you can do. But there is a provision in the PUD section that allows for the township board to do a findings of fact to determine where they could have something at a smaller acreage if they find some value to it.
When you calculate that 6 acres, does that include the parks?
No. It's basically the Medalli Park is not in part of that. It's the east side, which is, off the top of my head, it's less than 2 acres, and then the west side is somewhere around 4,
But
probably not even that.
A public park could hypothetically be part of a PUD, couldn't it?
It could be, and that's one thing that we've thought of is if you're going to do a PUD down there or any type of use, you're going to have to look at it more comprehensively than just, and that's why we expressed to them that, there's no guarantee that they can actually do a PUD down there, but that would be something that the township would be more open to allow for them to still use that property. Like we were mentioning, the shoreline setback requirements on the river at 75 feet, they would still have to meet the intent of that in terms of water quality and so forth. So they would still probably need some amount of a buffer along there and certainly have some ways to ensure that there's not negative water quality impact on the river. So if anything, you could have that building kind of just staying there forever, or you could, maybe provide some middle ground to allow for some redevelopment there and potentially improve it and kind of be much better off than where it is if it just sits there currently as it is.
Anyone else? Well, thank you guys for putting the refresher together, and I look forward to actually cracking this open relative to a potential parcel that we've been, I guess, kind of talking about through multiple master plans and consideration. It occasionally has come up as an opportunity, so it'd be great for the township if it got redeveloped.
I do have one point, I don't want to belabor this too much, but incidentally, it was kind of ironic, last week, we did have a Logan's Landing meeting. We had scheduled a meeting back in October of last year, knowing that this area is kind of a little bit of a challenge. So we did convene a meeting. It was the township, we had the county was involved, county parks, county administration, we had the road commission, we had some of the Conservation Resource Alliance, which was involved in the dam removal. We had TART, we had the Watershed Center. I know we invited the band to this last meeting, but they were the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians, but they were unable to make it. But just kind of talking about that particular area, and certainly I think we recognize that probably the key piece to that area is the river crossing itself. And obviously, we've seen how it was tested last week, so if probably just as Beitner will be having a new bridge crossing at the river there, a bridge needs to happen here at some point, I would imagine, going across the river at Logan's Landing. That in itself has a potential to really determine how the rest of the development and redevelopment of that area continues. So we'll be in a process of preparing some information, basically a findings of fact, based on the conversation and all of the people that were involved, just so that they have a better understanding, particularly for some of the developers in that area, just to understand that area is naturally a river delta. So those two channels, the main channel and the easterly channel, are not the natural channels. It would have been several kind of channels in that area that would go out to the lake, and the lake was, the original lake was much farther north. So it's basically building in a river delta and crossing on a river delta is probably not the best. So it's just to understand that historically the environment going through there it has some challenges. So we just thought it was just important for people to understand the complexities of that area. So
Great.
we'll share that information when we kind of get that drafted.
I look forward to getting it. Well, all right. We have, that's the last of the new business then.
That one.
We do have one opportunity for public comment again. If
have-
anybody'd like to go ahead and step up.
What do you have?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Election.
Oh, that's under other business, which is actually after public comment.
Yep. You're good. Yep.
One of the things, Wayne Kiley here, one of the things that just occurred to me was when Rob and I first met with Kevin Klein and we showed our original prospective site plan that most of the larger hotel operators sort of want to subscribe to. It showed a 4-story hotel. And in terms of your dimensional standards, the 35 feet in height is typically residential limitations. And so, So I would think in commercial, there would be some more latitude on that. And we haven't obviously got a user yet, and we don't know exactly what it's going to be. But I'm just wondering if it's in here and structured as a 35 feet, is that going to be are we going to be swimming uphill later if it turns out that it needs to be 42 feet, for example, to get a 4-story hotel in there? Just food for thought, because it'd be great to address it earlier than later.
Okay.
So that's my thoughts. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Wayne. Any other comment? All right, we'll close public comment and we'll move on to other business. The item which we had added to the agenda was the appointment of a member of the Planning Commission to the joint, what is it, the joint?
It's the Grand Traverse Commons Joint Planning Commission. So it's a 6-member planning commission with 3 representatives from Garfield Township and 3 representatives from the city. Each municipality has 2 planning commission reps, and then there's an at-large rep. So 6 total.
Remind us who currently is serving.
So we have John, Molly, and then Amy Robbins, who's a Garfield resident. She's actually the former township assessor. So those 3 represent Garfield Township. The meetings are held quarterly, winter, spring, summer, fall. They do occasionally have some special meetings, but the role of the Joint Planning Commission is to oversee kind of some of the redevelopment of the Grand Traverse Commons. With the development regulations that were enacted back in 2017, it's really kind of takes on a form-based approach to that area because it's really anticipating that the uses that go in there are really occupying the existing buildings. Most of those are historic, so not a lot of new buildings. The way the development regulations work, it's a lot different than our ordinance. So there's a lot of administrative reviews, if at all. It really provides greater flexibility, just knowing that really the commons is already pretty much, I wouldn't say built out, but it is really, from a building standpoint, for the most part, is defined. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't any new building going on there, but there's certainly redevelopment of buildings. Probably one of the things there's 2 issues that we're trying to deal with right now. One is infrastructure assessment. So there was an initial infrastructure assessment evaluating water, sewer lines, roadways, parking lots, and so forth. That was completed back in '23, and then just recently there's another infrastructure assessment that mainly focused on stormwater and some of the drainage issues and challenges that they've had over at the Commons. So that has just been wrapping up. So the main reason that was done is that there is a brownfield plan that's in place at the Commons that does have some monies reserved for infrastructure improvements. So that will essentially creating a capital improvement plan ultimately for the Commons to help make some of those utility improvements and other infrastructure improvements. The other thing that we're looking to do is the most recent master plan for the Commons was developed in 2010. So you can imagine the difference between 2010 and where they're at 2016. A big part of the difference isn't just the repurpose and reuse of these buildings, but it's also the ownership has changed. As, you know, as a developer develops a site, you get new owners in there. I think part of the challenges of that area going forward is how do all of these different entities, different owners, there's condominiums in there, you know, you got, you know, how is this all gonna work together? So the master plan will probably is intended to, at this next go-around, to really kind of take into kind of the next phase of where the commons is going.
So, John, does that group then, the Joint GT Commons Authority,
Joint Planning Commission.
Planning Commission, sorry, thank you. Does that group have authority or make input on these, you know, it's obvious to me on the surface, and I haven't paid a great deal of attention to this organization, other than to get your reports. But does it have authority or just have input? You know, how does it act relative to the developers and the different tenants?
It's really a facilitating role in probably the broader vision. So
Okay.
when I mentioned like about the infrastructure, I think it was kind of the idea stemmed from the Planning Commission, but it's really going to be, it's not going to be them to carry that out in terms of the improvements. It's really about saying, hey, infrastructure there really needs to be improved. The buildings have been doing well, but the infrastructure, on the master plan, it's really about more facilitating that discussion in terms of being that convener for all those different stakeholders that are there. Because I think it's the one place that there can be those conversations. So really more of a facilitating role, master plan, not as in-depth as, you know, say this planning commission or the city planning
And
commission.
facilitating role as a representative of the township, right?
Yep,
Relative to not only the master plan and so that group would actually approve it would act in the same way that this body acts. If somebody came forward and said, I want to develop this in this way, they would take the first crack at that. In fact, we wouldn't have any authority over it, right?
correct. Yeah, this portion of the township is solely under that jurisdiction. It's a little bit different. In many cases, there's not even development reviews. There's we've had some stuff, most recently was over at the Barns, because they've added that addition, but I think most of that was, informing, a lot of that was done through the development, the way the development regulations are designed doesn't really require a lot of planning commission site plan review. It's more administrative process through there.
And so then that group has some input on, you said infrastructure as well. That's the utilities that service it, as well as the roads and drives that provide for the circulation throughout the entirety of the commons.
Yeah, I think in that case, it was really the planning commission was recognizing that there really should be some type of process to start some evaluation because of the complexity and the needs for all those improvements. And so that's where they're like, it came up with the idea. They didn't necessarily weren't the ones that executed it. It was a combination of both city and township engineers, consultants, and other stakeholders that actually did that assessment.
Mm-hmm.
It was more or less that the Planning Commission thought that would be an important task to kind of go forward to help the commons go through its redevelopment process.
But there's a joint then organization that kind of has input on, so the Garfield Township has input on the plan and the infrastructure and the development for parts that aren't even necessarily in the township.
Correct.
Correct. Yeah, yes, it's because most of the built environment there at the commons is within the city, but most of the kind of unbuilt natural areas are with, in terms of geography, is within the township. And so this is a way to kind of provide some balance to that so that it's coordinated between the two municipalities.
Thank you. Well, that refreshes my own or actually adds to what I understood previously. So Molly is not up for renewal. Correct? But John is?
Yeah.
And John, I guess,
Is Amy also up or not?
No, she's not.
So we're just we're looking just at John?
Yes.
and making a recommendation to the trustees then?
Correct. Township Board makes the appointment. We're just thought it would be a good opportunity here to, I know John's on
John, are you-
GBA and
Are you willing to
we don't
continue
wanna stretch
serving?
it Too thin.
With all of my asking questions and everything, are you interested in continuing to serve?
Well, I responded to the inquiry from the township that I'd be happy to keep doing it, but I'm also happy if they've got some other new blood that
Make a
they want to put on there.
motion, we reappoint John.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a,
John knows more than, you've been there a long time. He knows all the history.
I knew it. I don't know if I know it.
so we have a motion by Fudge with support by Augustinelli. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? The motion passes. Thank you for accepting the recommendation to the trustees to continue to serve. All right, what about items for the next agenda on May 13th?
Well, we just scheduled the public hearing for the text amendments, and we'll answer those questions and make those tweaks and edits per discussion. We have findings of fact for Copper Ridge's amendment. The correspondence we got that was the additional public comment, we can address some of the items in the staff report for that. We'll have a follow-up to Sugar Plum that did not move on to findings. As far as I know, they are trying to work with their neighbors, so we're awaiting updated materials, but we'll see what we get in time for that one. We have a request for extension for 3066 North Garfield. That may be all that's ready. We got some of, something else at Olson, not the one on top of the hill over by the hospital. Proposed amendment there. That might be all that's ready. We got another one that was submitted but may not actually be ready. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, we look forward to seeing that agenda in a few weeks.
Yep.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, everybody.